Go back to the interview now, and our conversation of course revolves around what are the remedial measures that we can institute to cushion the most vulnerable in our societies from the rising cost of living. Dr.FredOgola is a change management expert and public policy analyst from Strathmore University. He's now joining us tonight to help us put things into the right perspective. Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Fred. First of all, when you look at where we are, definitely, I mean, it has an element of our own making vis-a-vis, an element of what is happening, globally. What percentage of where we are would you assign to our own mess?
I think it's a bigger proportion because I know guys are talking about cost of living. You talked about what 1,000 shillings was last year and what it is today. I remember my experience when I landed in Switzerland, in Geneva, and I was given a very small cup of tea. They're actually very small, and I was charged for 8 euros. I found it was a cheat. So here, if you use 250 shillings, you'll drink almost a kettle. But there, just a small cup of tea will cost you 750. So the idea here for me, the long-term thinking is not about looking at...
But of course, to put that into perspective, I mean, Switzerland is the richest country in the world.
Yes. So what I'm trying to say is, we will not be looking at our own standards here. What those countries have done was not to worry about the cost, but to worry the income. And I'm thinking that as an expert in strategy, policy, economics, it's more important for us to concern about how can we put money on people's pockets, because we are more in charge of income and we are not in control of costs. Because we talk about now what's happening in Ukraine and Russia. COVID-19 came in. Those external factors do tend to affect costs. They tend sometimes not to affect more income than they can affect cost. If you look about, for example, the supply chain that was affected by COVID-19, now the supply chain being affected by Ukraine-Russia war. If we continue concentrating on cost, we'll never grow. For example, since we were born, I used to buy bread at 4-5 shillings when I was a young boy. Now, how much is bread? Some of them are 200 shillings. Do you think that even if there's a new government, bread will go cheaper? That's a lie. I listen to people every time they're thinking that people say, a lower cost of living, that cannot go down. It has never gone down. The cost of living continues to go up. What we need as an economy is to have a vibrant, productive economy while have people having more incomes. By the way, Brian, do you want to continue having the same salary you have? Not really.
You're expecting an answer for that question?
Of course, the answer is obvious, that you want more income. Let the cost go up, but let the income continue to go. Because see, if we say we want to lower cost of living, you are telling farmers that you want to lower their revenues. Is there anybody who want to lower their revenue or profitability for the sake of making things cheaper? No one. No staff, no employee, no supplier, no entrepreneur. Everybody wants to earn more.
And so, Fred, your argument is, I mean, instead of so much concentrating on the cost of basic commodities, what we should preoccupy ourselves with is increasing the amount of money in people's pockets.
Yes, productivity.
And the question then comes, how do you increase the amount of money in people's pockets without raising productivity?
Like, for example, you hear that example, people are saying now the solution is allow imports. That's an economic policy. What are you doing to the people, local industries? You are not going to invest in them. I can tell you, Obrien, these decisions have been made by countries and the examples to look for. Remember, China used to export 100% of electronics from US. When the owner of Huawei went to the government and told them, can you just give us 5% of your local budget to develop local industries in technology? Now China exports technology to the US. But those are the things we want somebody to stand in time and turn this tangent by always thinking about solutions must come from outside. So you ask me, is it our own making or we are victims of circumstances? And I told you, more we are our own making, we are the cause of our trouble, less to do with us being victim of circumstances. For example, what informs us trying to make people to import for us as short-term solutions to a disease which exists. You know, if you are walking on the rain and you feel overwhelmed by rain when the rain starts raining, then you go under a tree, then you feel there is no rainfall. For a while, under the tree will be worse. Actually, that's what we are taking. And I don't think that's a good decision to take at the moment. I believe we should take short-term decisions, yes. But what's the long-term solution? That is what we need to fix.
What would you prescribe as the long-term solution?
You've heard about us moving to industrial economies. Are we industrialized? Not yet. We are not yet industrialized. But we are talking about industrial economies. We have not yet gone into that. What do we manufacture? How many IPs, intellectual properties, do we have as Kenya compared to other countries? Go to the US. How many intellectual properties exist there? So many. I mean, in universities in Kenya, how many intellectual properties do they have? Copy paste. So what I'm trying to say here, when we want to move into industrialized economies, research and development, which was mentioned, needs to be done. How much is the government investing in research and development?
This is less than 2.5% of our GDP, actually.
So that's the thing. That's the point. That's why we're mostly spending money on recurrent expenses. We are not spending money on development. The current president, has invested heavily on infrastructure, which is an asset, as a platform for us to go to the next level. Then now what becomes clearly is, as we go into this, I don't know, we are in a messy election period, whom can we trust that can build on what he has done? Infrastructure is great. Look at the SGR. I hear people saying, oh, SGR was a bad idea. That is nonsense, because according to me, SGR is in our tummy. We have already swallowed SGR in our stomach. How can we remove it? For example, Obrien, if I find you have swallowed poison, should I start saying, you could have not swallowed poison, or my work should be, now how can you survive with this poison in your stomach? I'm not saying SGR is poison. What I'm trying to say is our balance sheet. How can we make SGR productive? Don't you think there can be jobs can be created there? Now we have the expressway being opened very soon. What can be economic activity that can be income generating in those things? We are talking about pipeline being built. What can be the incomes in these assets that have been invested heavily from Kibaki's government, now to Uhuru's government, that have been invested heavily in assets? We are still looking for to import something, but we have an asset with us sitting here. So I'm saying that those who make economic policies should look for how to increase income. There is no day, I repeat, that cost will go down, because everybody wants to earn more. And that's what has happened in developing countries. Why should coffee be 9 euros, which is almost 1,000 bob in Geneva? Is because the waiter who brings to you, or the waitress bringing for you that coffee, is being paid well. And therefore, he or she can afford other things.
But you see, you're talking about Geneva. I mean, I've been there too. And Geneva is the most expensive. It's actually one of the most expensive cities in the world. It was overtaken by Hong Kong. So comparing...
What I'm trying to say, it functions. What I'm saying, by being an expensive town doesn't make it dysfunctional. It is functioning. So by us talking about cost of living having gone up is not us having a solution. What I'm trying to say is that bringing the cost down is not a solution. Bring incomes up. And that is what will happen. Look at how people are doing things, for example, technology-wise. I was telling people, we are still in an age whereby we have engineers. Like, for example, unfortunately, the brightest Kenyan student has said in KCP, he wants to become a robotics engineer, isn't it? That's cool. We have engineers in this town, but we don't have a single stone crusher. We are having people using stone to break stone, to make stones for construction. Why don't we invest in such like things? Then improve our productivity.
Fred, let me ask you this, because I mean, the issues that you're raising here, you know, is what you would classify as mid to long term.
Yes.
But you see, Kenyans are not really looking for solutions in the year 2025.
Yeah.
Because we are in this hellhole.
Yes.
And we need to get out of it. So the question is, how do we survive currently, and how do we get out of this?
Now, of course, I'll tell you this in different levels. First, there is what the government needs to do.
And what is that?
What the government needs to do now is to do a bit of subsidies. And of course, we can have a government that can be able to subsidize a few things for people to cushion them as the way to come out of this so-called choking inflation. For example, we see countries whereby they leave the so-called Robin Hood model, isn't it? And Kenya has done do that a little bit. There are products which are being consumed by rich people, whom even if you talk about price of bread, they don't care. In fact, they shop with a phone in their ear like this. They shop and they don't even look at the prices. While we have some Kenyans shopping with calculators in trolleys. So for the products which are being consumed by rich people, if you go to the vegetable section in the supermarket, for you, you'll pick tomatoes, you'll pick onions, but you also pick eggplant, among other things that the poor don't know. I grew up in a household whereby the only vegetable was tomato and onion. For you, it may be eggplant. So for the eggplant section, we can increase the price of eggplant to subsidize the price for tomato and onion for the poor person. It happens, for example, Walmart, for example. If you go to Walmart, there's a section in food where there are things like peanut butter, things like, you call them butter actually, things like bacon, they are slightly more expensive, so the rich people pay for it to make other goods cheaper for the poor people. And this economy must be a sharing economy for us to live. This is a short-term thing. But individually, Obrien, there's a lot of things you can do. By the way, we pay for our habits, our manners. If you show me your M-Pesa statements, I'll show you who you are. I'll show you your behavior. Your behavior is reflected on your M-Pesa statement. If you are a guy who like bringing, if you like, these girls in the evening, they come visit you. Kila msana jakula, si jakula. So you have to Uber them. Secondly, you have to buy chicken for them at Kenshik. You'll see the bills spiraling on there. If you like buying groundnuts on traffic, that's if you are buying chocolate. So change your behavior, you'll reduce your cost of living. You are addressing the so-called the Kenyan middle class. Yes, but even the how do you address? But even the Kenyan your grandmother. Poor, but even the Kenyan in poor, Homa Bay. There's a lot of, actually, by the way, research shows that the poor people are less able to make decisions in spending than the rich people. For example, the so-called the Kadogo economy is disadvantageous to the poor. Of course, you tell me they have to buy in some small amount. But you know, you reach here, somebody has bought groundnuts, they're eating as they're walking. Somebody goes, buys maize, they eat as they're walking. But if you go home and consolidate a meal for a family, it will be cheaper than these things you pick up and down, eating up and down. You bring one mandazi there. If you walk in the streets of Nairobi, did you see people walking with the kettles of tea and some kangumus selling? Do they sell to the middle class? No. The middle class cannot pick kangumu on traffic. You are driving, you're too busy. The poor they sell to. And why are they selling this outside and make a living out of it? Because that's the Kenyan poor. What I'm trying to say in short, research has shown that the poor do not know how to use their money. The rich at least knows. And that's what we need to change. Behavior. You see, the kind of economic model that you're talking about, I mean, fits, is a classical example of an economic model that will fit very well in for example, China, you know, whereby the government has a lot of say in price controls. But in a Kenyan scenario whereby, you know, we do not have any form of price controls, then how do you choose, you know, to sell broccoli at 50 shillings to FredOgola and the same at 20 shillings to Obrien? No, I don't mean the same product. I mean in any section of food, the rich tend to buy more under the same section. For example, when I look at your plate, when you're eating in the morning, you'll buy, I said, tomato and onion, but you'll also buy some other things to season the food. The poor just buy tomato, onion, and oil, then they put sukuma and eat. For you, add other things that are just to make it smell nice. You are not putting things to make you really feel that you're satisfied. So those things, the same section, with high increment in a little bit of pricing there, it can cushion the poor. And this has happened. So Walmart does the same. For example, if for you go buy shoes, I don't know, you not buy the people buy basic sandals for walking. For you, you're also looking for what is glittering. What if you walk, it is showing lights. these people don't want those additions. So those ones are ones we add a little bit of some pricing. We use it to cushion the poor about it.
Tell me this.
Yeah.
I mean, I have seen politicians, saying that it is high time we relooked at our pay-as-you-earn, as our value-added tax, and even our import duty.
Yeah.
Do you think by retweaking those three, there will be any impact on the cost of living in this country?
No, it has never, because it didn't show anything around COVID. In fact, there is a relationship between lowering taxes and national revenue. Because if you have a lower national revenue, you have nothing to cushion yourself with. Look, let's have example of countries that have the highest taxes. UK, for example, 50%. In Kenya, we are crying about 20-30%. But the issue, of course, you can tell him, where does that money go? That's not my issue to discuss here. What I'm trying to say here is that lowering taxes is not a solution, because there is no income. You know, if you look, how many Kenyans actually pay taxes? What is the percentage?
It's less than 25% of the population.
Then what is the impact of lowering or increasing? So if you lower taxes to only 25% of Kenyans who are rich, how do you help my grandmother and the poor people in my village in Siaya or Ugenya? You don't help them. Because if we had 100% people who pay taxes, lowering people's taxes will help the entire majority. But if most people are not paying taxes, when they hear you saying, no, we are lowering taxes from 30 to 25, they don't know how that affects them. So I don't believe it's a solution in this economy, which is still very much informal economy.
The issue of expanding the tax base has always been a hot debate in this country, because we have a situation of the number of registered voters in this country is almost 3 times higher than the number of people who are registered as taxpayers.
Yeah.
But one may argue that what if you are to have, for example, the value-added tax on bread from 16% to 10%? What impact would that have on the cost of bread?
Of course, you see, if you look, I think over 70% of the cost of any product, over 70% of the cost of any product is determined by government taxes. That's the truth. And that's why government has an impact on the cost of every price. But having said that, the truth of the matter is that those lowering of taxes to make the bread more available has not worked. And by the way, let me tell you what, you'll cry about cost of living today. After we stay for 3 months, you'll be shocked Kenyans have adjusted and they can just eat bread and no one is talking about it. And I can tell you, we've gone through this all through and through. For a while, people are worried about cost of living, because we have to buy masks, we have to buy what? Who talks about it anymore? We've adjusted. People find ways on how they can earn extra income. I'm sure, Obrien, you are not earning only from KBC. I don't want to expose you now.
Now you are.
I'm a lecturer. I am a consultant, isn't it? I have a few businesses that earn me some money because I know that my day work can't pay for my bills. And that's what everybody has to wake up
So
to.
you have a side hustle?
Yes, I would call it so.
So you're making a clarion call that, hey, look here, don't just have one revenue stream.
Yes.
Create multiple revenue streams.
Yes.
We'll come back to that, but I want you to hold your breath on that, because now we want to listen to tax experts on what they are saying about the issue that I was raising, because tax experts are calling for exemption in farm inputs to lower the cost of food production as a way of taming inflation. Well, we spoke to Ernst & Young Managing Partner Anthony Muthusia, and this is his thoughts.
Eastern European belt, the Eastern Central European belt is a significant producer of potash and fertilizers, and I think Belarus, Russia, and Ukraine are all under pressure with sanctions or war, and obviously the supply chain for fertilizer is going to get disrupted a little bit, and we expect the larger countries will fight for their fair share of allocation of fertilizers, so I don't know what will happen to us in Africa, but I suspect prices could increase, and the minister should pay attention to that. We could see some policy pronouncements around fertilizers, maybe subsidies.
Well, that is Muthusia, a tax partner at Ernst & Young, is raising some concerns about if we were to lower or if we were to subsidize, the farm inputs, then you are likely to have an impact on the cost of production in this country. Do you agree with him? You were telling me that he's your friend, right?
Yeah, Anthony Muthusi is a friend. We worked with him. When I started my consultancy as a young faculty, he was among those who told me how to do, and he was there to give me confidence when I was starting my game. But of course now, I've done 1,032 strategic plans, so I have a lot of experience under my belt, so I don't need someone looking beyond me how I'm working. But anyway, to go to the point is that when you're talking about taxes or to inputs, if you look at the value chain, you find that primary production is the least profitable. And the profits are made by aggregators, isn't it? And those who do auctioning.
And when you talk about primary production, what exactly do you mean?
For example, like, where I farm inputs, I want to produce maize, I want to produce potatoes, I want to produce mangoes. So primary production before any value addition. Even before you assemble them and sell them in the supermarket. The person who produces mangoes in Machakos earns less than the person who takes the mangoes and brings them to the supermarket in Carrefour or in Tuskys or in Naivas. So instead of looking at how only to reduce taxes there are a way on which this value chain can be constructed in a way that more benefits can go into the farmers and less goes to the guys who aggregate. Imagine if you plant maize that matures in three months, you'll plow the land. You'll again till the land, you harrow the land, you do the planting, then you do the harrowing in the process, then you do harvesting. In 3 months, your money is still on the soil, isn't it? Somebody comes and collects them on a weekend and sells the supermarket and makes their money. So these are the people who are most disadvantaged. And the subsidies to primary production has never ever had a lot of impact in reducing the cost of living.
So don't you think you're discouraging, farmers in this country?
No, but I'm saying that is the fact. That's why if you go, for example, to China, there's what we call Agricultural Bank of China that give loans and subsidies and supports farmers because they're disadvantaged. If you go to India, there's Agricultural Bank of India that does the same because these are the most disadvantaged and less privileged. Because turnaround time to market is 4 months. Somebody's time to market is 1 week. So instead of I'm sorry to say, if you want to choose a lucrative market, don't go into primary production. And I'm not saying you don't go there. Somebody has to do that thing.
It has to be done by someone.
But then the government now gives incentive to those people. Lowering taxes is not an incentive.
Look, for example, in a country whereby more than 70% of production is done by smallholder farmers,
yes,
who use outmoded farming technologies. So, and the scenario that you are painting here actually is very, very true.
Yeah.
So how do you ensure that you put more money and more value into the first part of the value chain, and that is the smallholder farmer? Because,
for example, the issue is not even about the issue of taxes. The issue is about the risk this will face. In countries like India, China, they're insured that if you plant, because it doesn't rain, because these guys still believe on rain-fed, let's say, farming. In case you are failed by the climate and the rest, you are compensated. In Kenya, there is no such a thing. The other thing is the wastage that goes in there. There are so many bananas, mangoes rotting in so many parts. For example, bananas in Meru. But how do you bring these things to market in good condition and people can make money off? There are some things you can do which have bigger impact than the taxation thing. Guys, go to the easiest solution. Since I was born, I've never believed that whenever you have a challenge, you take the most easy solution, then you're easy. I would like to go for a solution that has an impact. What impact will that have on the cost of living? What impact will that have in the national gross revenue? Let's not talk about small things or small solutions. Squeeze here, squeeze there. If you have what's called scarcity mentality, you never grow.
Tell me this. And you managed to talk about this, as a country we have invested trillions of shillings in expanding and renewing our infrastructure.
Yeah.
Infrastructure is supposed to be an economic enabler,
yeah,
where people move from point A to point B to trade.
Yes.
Do you believe it is high time that we put a pause on those big ticket infrastructure projects and refocus our energy elsewhere on maybe giving people more money into their pockets, improving farm inputs and so much?
Not really, because you see what's happening is that, when you start a journey of some kind, you don't stop in the middle, then you don't realize its full benefit. You have to walk all the way. So
regardless of the pain.
Yes, because you have to persevere. Like, some of us, we did persevere personally. My route to success was education. I studied for 29 years of my life. I was finishing when I was so broke by that time. Then I now start recouping that investment. So when you say that your route to success with education, imagine at 29 years old, 5 degrees, 2 masters, a PhD, 4 international certification, that needed perseverance. But now I can reap that benefit. If we start by saying, let's stop here and begin here, you may find when we go this side, we are not succeeding because this side is stuck, then we end up not. I'm saying when Kibaki said infrastructure, they say we will begin to see the benefits. And in some sense, we are seeing these benefits. And you can see now the cost of traffic on the economy is higher. This is going down. So I could see some benefits on continuously doing infrastructure, but you should do some sort of portfolio investment so that a certain percentage goes into this investment, as a certain portfolio also goes into how can you create jobs using this infrastructure and harvest from this infrastructure you've created. Yeah.
Let's talk even about employment. And employment is one of ways of making people self-sustaining, and this is one way of putting money in people's pockets. In an economy that is barely creating enough jobs to meet the market demand. So how do you ensure that you deal with the issue of unemployment, which is a major challenge in Kenya, and in the end you put more money into people's pockets?
Well, you could see during Kibaki's time, I remember so many people left. I was in the bank. So many people left the bank to begin businesses of their own. I'm sure the trend was very high. People were saying, I want to set up this, I want to set up that. The issue here is that where is the government getting the money to do infrastructure rather than whether they should do infrastructure? If the government has high appetite for capex and they're getting this money from the commercial banks, then they're competing against you who can get this money to be able to invest in the business. Because look here, France as economy is the second largest economy in Europe. It was built by entrepreneurs, not government. I know guys now, and there's something I'm very happy about, the conversation on inflation and all this cost of living has moved away from being a political issue to being an economic issue, which actually should be. France built the economy using the entrepreneurs who came in to volunteer to look for how to grow the economy by building family businesses. Do you know Coke was a family business? Coke was a family business. And these are the businesses that grew that made America what it is. Danone, which is the largest yogurt making company in the world, was a family business in France. So government creates an enabling environment. That's why they are building infrastructure. Because if I tell you to construct a road, we won't, isn't it? Because it needs a lot of money. But using that road, what can you make of this road? What can be productive? Kenyans should stop being importers, brokers, isn't it? And traders. We should start being value adders, isn't it? And business people. The mentality is what needs to change. World-class wealth begins with the world-class thinking. And before we have a world-class thinking, we cannot create a world-class wealth.
Very good.
And I think it should be a mental shift. Yeah.
In the interest of time, because we have to come to the end, I mean, despite the fact that this is a very interesting conversation, there are people here who are watching you and they're asking themselves, I mean, the revenue stream has not improved, be it through employment or through business. But now they are finding themselves in a situation whereby now the cost of daily commodities, basic commodities, is going up. I want you to advise them, number one. And number two, I want to hear from you, if you were given the position to turn around the situation that we are in, what are the 2 things that you do that you are sure will change the game plan forever?
For example, there's a lot of wastage in food. So for these people having challenges, go crazy on what is called leftovers. I know people don't want to say this, but that's a fact, isn't it? Go on a financial diet. There are so many things you spend money on that you don't need to do that. Thirdly, take care of yourself. There are so many things we do that increases our cost. For example, you've not eaten at the right time, you have ulcers. Or sometimes you take alcohol and you get sick. This increases your cost of living. Fourth, take care of your items. People break phone screens, they misuse their cars, increases cost for nothing. I'm saying people break their own things that brings them costs. Do things the right time. When you see your car wanting engine change, do it. Do the right things the right time. And of course, I'm saying that should be on the behavioral level. If I'm given to be in charge of this economy, I'll start very easy, isn't it? What is mostly choking this economy is opportunities. And then people need to change their worldview. Obrien, maybe you see me as sitting as a professor. Do you know my background? My father was a catechist. He earned 300 shillings a month, while 11 children. Do you know what I saw in life? And so when my brothers and sisters are watching, actually they should be very shocked to see that I'm saying the same thing is true. They know it. In fact, we lived one of the most difficult lives we had. But you know what's happening? My father taught us one thing. Work hard, don't beg. Don't beg anybody for anything. We used to wake up at 3 a.m. We used to go to dig. Shambas we hired from people to dig for survival. Then my father went to work, then he went to school. He taught us hard work, and with high mentality. My father told me, one day, Fred, you'll be a professor. I remember when I used to be in high school, I used to be a very good sprinter and a rapper. He told me, my son, your talent is not in your mouth and your legs, in your head. Work hard and succeed. People need to have a change of mentality, but the government will only create an enabling environment. Let us be creative. As we speak now, my father's parents died with no bank account. I think I have several of them because I have several businesses. So world class, wealth begins with the world class thinking, and that's where it starts. It starts from here. Let's not start from somewhere else. Thank you.
Fred.
Yes.
Thank you very much indeed for your invaluable advice.
Yes.
This is an ongoing conversation, and so who knows, we might call you back here next time.
I look forward.
Otherwise, your time is highly appreciated.
Thank you.
Fred Ogola is a change management expert as well as a public policy analyst and an economic lecturer at the Strathmore University, joining us tonight to help us make headways in the issue around the rising cost of living in this country. You have, of course, heard it from him. Time now to continue with the world of business, and now back to Cynthia Nyamai.